The ice spikes was one of the first ideas ever suggested for this series over half a year ago on episode 2. And so I've been wanting to do this one naturally for a very long time. However, I've just kept delaying it for a number of reasons. But I'm glad I have, because in that time, this module, which originally was intended to be very flat, has morphed into something quite special. And it may just be one of the most impressive chunks in this entire display. Let's build this thing. This is definitely a biome worthy of an entire chunk's worth of space, and as you might have guessed, I'll be putting it right up against the snowy taiga I made a few episodes ago, continuing that frozen pond and a bit of that biome into this one, but mostly this thing is going to be filled with ice spikes. One thing that I've gotten a lot of requests to do is the creepy dungeon that's found under an igloo, and of course the igloo on top, but that's where the height of this module comes into play. I want room to fit this thing underneath. So I'll be creating it as game accurate as possible, utilizing some very interesting textures in here, because otherwise this is just a gray box. I've developed a custom brewing stand design that I'm not sure I'm 100% happy with, but I do like some of the other things going on in here, such as the ladder, the floor pattern, and of course our villager and zombie villager in their respective cages. For the torch, I'm actually using an orange paintbrush. I'm not 100% sold on that, but I definitely think it's a little more game accurate than Lego's design. At least the scale is better. The idea for this thing is that it's going to slide in and out of the bottom of the module, so I want to create a nice tiled place where it can slot in very easily. Even though in game this structure feels pretty small, it still takes up quite a bit of space in Lego. What that means is I have to somehow get a mountain to cover over this thing, and we want to make that mountain look as interesting as possible. The hardest part about building a big bit of terrain like this is making sure it's all structurally sound. Of course, the Minecraft aesthetic lends itself to this very well, as it's built out of pretty strong bricks, your standard 2x4s and a bunch of plates. Ice spike terrain generation is pretty unique. It goes 1 block of snow, anywhere from 1 to 4 blocks of dirt, and then stone underneath. So I want to, of course, replicate this in the build. You'll notice also there's this area of medium blue bricks. That is going to be the foundation for our first ice spike. The way I'm constructing these things is super simple. It's all basic bricks and plates all the way up. Medium blue isn't all that common of a color, and its parts inventory is pretty limited. That means I can't do any fancy studs not on top construction to accomplish that smooth underside that I'd usually like. Thankfully, Lego actually has produced the 2x2 inverted tile in this color, which is very shocking to me since that piece doesn't exist in a whole lot of colors. Thankfully, that makes tiling this thing off on the underside extremely easy. This saves me a lot of time and a lot of bricks than any other techniques would have. While it's possible that I could have done this using snot techniques if this brick didn't exist, this is by far the best way to do it. We'll put this into place on the side of the cliff. This will be the first of 2 of these larger ice spikes, and hopefully we'll have one smaller one at the top of the cliff as well. Already it dominates the landscape, and this is the shorter of the 2 ice spikes, guys. I'll start working on the other side of the terrain. This is the terrain that faces towards the pillager outpost and the warmer side of the build. I want this to be a pretty sharp incline so that it blends down as smoothly as possible into roughly where the swamp is. Even though I have to bring the terrain down to ground level relatively quickly, that doesn't mean I need to make a big flat wall here. There are so many ways to add visual interest to terrain, most importantly by adding depth, but also varying the texture here of the dirt on top so that we don't just have straight lines across. Like I mentioned earlier, I've got to put a row of snow blocks on top to give that deeper snow effect, and then I'll start laying out the foundation of our second large ice spike. This is going to be the tallest one on the model, so I want to make sure it can support its own weight. Those of you who watch my other content have probably seen this very ice spike in the background of some of my videos for literal months at this point, and it feels so good to give it a proper home on the LEGO Minecraft layout. This module just became the tallest in the entire display. That's above the Mesa Badlands, that's above the Pillager Outpost. Even at this scale, ice spikes become undeniably impressive, and this is only a fraction of the height they can actually generate in the game. Thanks to its primarily basic brick build structure. The thing is plenty sturdy too, which can't really be said for most of the tall things I build out of Lego. Next, it's time to start bridging the gap over our Igloo Dungeon, and so we can lay the foundation for the igloo itself. The igloo itself is a very, very simple structure and made out of a very common color, white bricks, which is great. So I'm going to start mapping this thing out with jumpers, so I guess you could take down the walls of the igloo if you wanted to, because why not? More flexibility is always great. So there are a number of things we need to include. On the inside of the igloo, there is a bunch of carpet. First of all, there is a layer of light gray carpet towards the back, followed by 9 squares of white carpet in front of that. And then, of course, there's some furniture as well, including a crafting table, a furnace, a red bed, and then a redstone torch so that it doesn't melt the ice windows. The rest of the structure is super straightforward, just a lot of white basic bricks. I've made the roof easy to attach, it just sits right on top. I'm feeling a bit ambitious with this model, so I want to include a play feature that LEGO added in their Ice Spike set many years ago, and it's probably the coolest function in any LEGO Minecraft set ever, is the ability to spawn a snow golem. The mechanism is genius. It hides the finished snow golem under this section of snow and flips back to reveal it. In the LEGO set, the 2 blocks of snow with the pumpkin head flip back into an ice spike to disappear, which is exactly what I'll do here. It's just the perfect thing to hide the mechanism in. This is why I love buying the LEGO Minecraft sets. Yes, they're relatively simple, especially compared to what I do, but you can always learn something new that you can incorporate into your own builds by picking them up, and I think that makes them extremely valuable. The designers are, quite frankly, geniuses. There's only a few things left to do for this module, and one of them is tiling. And there's a lot of tiling to do. The only task that remains is to add some characters to this build, including another stray that I got, a player who's spawning that snow golem, a new custom polar bear design I made, and of course a baby polar bear. In many ways, this biome reminds me of the Mushroom Island in that it's a much more mystical environment than you're used to seeing in the Minecraft overworld. I definitely didn't expect it to happen, but this Ice Spikes module has become one of my favorite builds of the entire series. It has functionality, it has height, it has bulk. It's got some new mobs that are being introduced here for the first time. There's so much to explore and see and do, and it's building stuff like this that really makes me so excited about the future of this series and LEGO Minecraft as a theme. Thankfully, I finally have a proper permanent display for these modules, so I can easily connect this to the snowy taiga. As you'll notice, there are still a lot of holes in this world, and some weird looking walls that we need to cover. But don't worry, this series isn't anywhere close to being over. There's lots more to come. That being said, I do think we're going to take a quick break from this dimension and head back to the Nether to make the Warped Forest for the next episode. If you want to catch this episode early, all you need to do is become a channel member by either hitting the join button down below, or I have a link in the description. The Warped Forest is definitely one that a lot of people have been requesting, and definitely one that I've been wanting to build for months at this point. You aren't going to be disappointed. Thank you to everyone for tuning in yet again to another episode of this series. It's been so much fun to continue to do this for so long at this point. And I'm grateful for all the support. Have a great life, everyone. I'll see you next time.